Testing, testing. All right, Shalom. First and foremost, want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of a great millstone that taught us this truth, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. All right, the Akim and Aqua scattered around the four corners of the planet Earth. All right, I'm the brother Arak from the GMS Dallas, and wanted to do a quick lesson through the Spirit, um, and I'll entitle it, "But the Word of the Lord endureth forever." All right. But the word of the Lord endure forever. All right, and that is a excerpt from First Peter, the first chapter, and the 25th verse. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and start there, okay? Because the word, all right, scriptures talk about the word, all right, and the word is Yahweh Shai, okay, pursuant to John 1:1, you know, Yahweh Shai is the word, all right, and he's the one steering basically the thoughts, plans, and actions um of the men of the Lord, of the elect. All right. That's why the scriptures say, man's goings are of the Lord. Okay. Free will doesn't exist ultimately. Okay. And if you are, a man of the Lord that has come into this truth, okay, like the apostle Paul said, we're prisoners. Okay, so we're subject, okay, to that, engrafted word that is within us. And that's truly where our power lies. Okay, because that word that is within us cannot be destroyed. Okay, it's indestructible. Okay, and that's our power source. So without further ado, Lord's willing, this lesson is edifying. I wanted to go into this idea a little bit. I'm gonna start here in First Peter 1:25, but I'm gonna start at verse 24. It says, "For all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. All right, the grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away." Okay, and the grass right there, essentially it's a metaphor. All right, and the grass right there and the flower represents basically carnality. Okay, everything that you have in this world. Okay, whether it be money, all right, whether it be women, whether it be fame, notoriety. Okay, anything carnal. All right, we know that all those things are ultimately going to be, they're going to be no more. Okay, we can't take any of those things with us. All right, and that's part of the reason that the scriptures, liken us to pilgrims. Okay, because pilgrims aren't really concerned with carnality. Okay, they're concerned with the destination. Okay, and that's what we're concerned with. All right, but let me read verse 25. It says, "But the word of the Lord endureth forever, and this is the word which by the gospel is preached unto you." Okay, and the word, the engrafted word, we're going to get that scripture next. Okay, that's what's being preached. Okay, and Yahweh Shai is being preached. Okay, so let me read this verse again. It says, "But the word of the Lord endures forever." Okay, and that's the thing. This gospel, this good news that we're preaching is the same message. All right, it's the same word that Yahweh Shai was teaching, back when you read the scriptures. All right, and when you read, the book of Acts and you read, the epistles, okay, it's the same thing. All right. As a matter of fact, it's been regenerated. All right. Because the scriptures deal with, reincarnation and regeneration. Okay, things, like the saying goes in the world, what goes around comes around. you know, what goes around comes around. And it's the same thing with this word. All right. But let me transition real quick. Let me get this scripture real quick. This is First John chapter 5 and verse 4. And it reads, it says, "For whatsoever is born of Yahweh Shem Shai overcometh the world. Okay. And what has been born, of Yahweh Shem Shai? All right. The elect, and the faith, okay, that drives the elect. Okay. Because like the scriptures say, faith is a gift, you know. So let's read this again. Give me 1 second. All right, this is First John chapter 5 and verse 4. It says, "For whatsoever is born of Yahweh Shemel Shai overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith." Okay, and when you read the scriptures, okay, the elect, the remnant were prophesied to fall away. Okay, pursuing to Second Thessalonians 2, but they were also prophesied to be reborn, in the latter days. Okay, and let's get a couple precepts on that. All right. Let me start here. This is Matthew chapter 19 and verse 27. And it reads, it says, "Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." All right, so there goes that concept of regeneration. Okay, and let's get this word just for edification's sake. Strong's G3824. It says new birth. All right, new birth. Okay, like we just read in that First John 5. Reproduction. All right. It says, hence renovation, regeneration, the production of a new life consecrated to the Most High. All right, a radical change of the mind for the better. Okay, and that's pretty much it on that. We could go more, but I want to get this precept real quick to go with it. Okay, because the elect being reborn, the remnant being, woken up in the latter days, proves that the powers that be, okay, Satan, all right, and Esau, all right, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do to inhibit, all right, or stop, the will of the Lord from going forth. Okay, there's nothing they can do about it. All right. And any vain attempt, at altering prophecy, at altering the will of the Lord, it's vain. All right. It's not going to do anything. Okay. But this is Psalms chapter 22 and verse 30 and verse 31. It says, "A seed shall serve him, and it shall be accounted to the Lord for a generation." Okay. And that seed, that's serving the Most High through Yahweh Shai is the elect, the remnant. All right. We're not serving our own bellies. We're not serving our own agenda. We're not trying to do our own thing. We're trying to stay obedient to that word, that engrafted word that's within us. Okay, which is really Yahweh Shai. All right, um, guiding our lives. All right. But this is Psalms 22 and 31. It says, "They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he have done this." Okay. So there's a people prophesied, okay, to be born in these times today. All right. And let's get another precept going into that. All right. This is Second Ezra chapter 1. And I'm gonna read verse 33. It says, "Thus saith the Almighty Lord, your house is desolate. I will cast you out as the wind doth stubble." All right. And you can liken our house unto our land. All right. The land of Israel, which is the inheritance of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay. Through our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay. But like it says, "I will cast you out as the wind of stubble." Okay. That's really talking about the diaspora. Okay. Deuteronomy 28. Okay. And when you go into the word diaspora, um, the word diaspora literally means to scatter seed, you know. So, what seed is it talking about? All right. And seed, the word seed is also singular. Okay. Because there's only one chosen seed. All right. But let me jump down. This is second Ezra 1 and 35. It says, your houses will I give to a people that shall come, which not having heard of me, yet shall believe me, to whom I have showed no signs, yet they shall do that I have commanded them, right? Because we haven't seen the things that our forefathers have seen. A good example of that is when you read Exodus, the 18th chapter, the 19th chapter, the 20th chapter. All right. Basically, when it goes into the Lord, revealing his glory, okay, via, that chariot on Mount Sinai, all right, where it was thundering and lightning, right? You know, we haven't seen nothing like that. All right. But we are getting ready to see something like that very soon. All right. On a much grander scale. But we believe that through faith. Okay. Verse 36, it says, they have seen no prophets, yet they shall call their sins to remembrance and acknowledge them. Right. And that goes back to that engrafted word. Okay. It's the faith. It's something that's within the elect. Has nothing to do with, you know, carnality. It has nothing to do with looks. It has nothing to do with, external factors. It has everything to do with what's already within. Okay, that's why the Lord said. Matter of fact, let's get that. Let's get this real quick. All right, let's get this real quick. This is Luke chapter 17 and verse 21. It says, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of Yahweh Shem Yahushua is within you. Okay, so the kingdom, okay, that's where the power is. All right, that's where our power is. Okay, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It's within us. All right, it's not in anything. It's not in anything of this world. It's not in anything that we're doing. It's a gift. Okay, it's a gift. All right, and let's get this next precept. As I quoted it earlier, this is James 1 and 21. It says, wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. Okay, let's get this word engrafted. All right, Strong G 1721. And Phytos, it says inborn, implanted by nature, implanted by others' instructions. Okay, that's that word. That's that word we talked about. All right, Yahushua is the word, the logos. All right. So let me see real quick. Let's go back. All right, because this is important. This is important to understand when going through particular, trials and temptations like Jacob's trouble that we're finna go through. All right. But even now in your daily life, it's important to remember that where your power, where your power comes from. Okay. Our power comes from the engrafted word. Our power comes from what Yahweh Shem Yahushua, gifted us with. Okay. And I know I said I was going to get something, but I want to get this real quick, just as I said that. All right. This is Ecclesiastes 8 and 4. It says, where the word of a king is, there is power. All right. So, in the flesh, you're going to get weak sometimes, man. Even in the mind. In the mind, you're going to get weak sometimes. Satan's going to attack you. All right. Satan's going, dispatch, demons to come mess with your mind. All right. But when you set all that to the side, when you set all those things to the side, the hell you catching, what are you left with? You're left with the word. You're left with the power. Okay. The force that's basically driving, prophecy, the things that are happening. Okay. But let's get this word power real quick. It says Shalatawan. All right, Shalatawan. It says mastery, a potentate. Okay, power. All right. Let's get this word potentate for edification. It says a monarch or ruler, an autocratic one, ruler, head of state, monarch, sovereign. All right. And you got to remember the force that is in us, Yahweh Shah. Okay. He's the most powerful being um, in the universe. Okay. When you read Matthew 28 and 18, all right, when he made that statement that all power in heaven and earth is given unto me, okay, he said that for a reason. Okay. And that's where our power lies. Our power lies with him. Okay. Let's get this real quick. Let's get this real quick. This is Romans chapter 8 and verse 37. I'll start at verse 36. Matter of fact, let me start at verse 35. Then I wanted to get Jeremiah 9 as well. This is Romans chapter 9 and verse 35. It says, who shall separate us from the love of Hamashiach? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. All right. And that's a hard saying. Okay. That's why the scriptures say, talks about those, who love not their lives unto the death. Right. Scriptures also talk about how he who loves his life will lose it. Okay. You got to understand that on this side, we gonna catch hell. This thing is about suffering. This thing is about patience. All right. And it's about growth, because that's how you grow ultimately, through suffering and through patience. All right. Just read James, the first chapter. All right. But this is Romans chapter 8 in verse 37. It says, nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. All right. So even with all that being said, we're still conquerors. And I'm tempted to get that word conquerors. But the point is, it says we are more than conquerors through him. Okay. So it's important to understand where your power comes from. It says this word conqueror, it says to vanquish beyond, to gain a decisive victory. All right, to gain a decisive victory. Okay. So I'm gonna finish with this. All right, this is Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 23. It says, thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me. Okay, so that's what this thing is about. Right? Scriptures say what? Get with all thy getting, get understanding. All right, what is it that we're supposed to be understanding? We're supposed to be understanding, all right, our power and where it comes from. Let me read this again. It says, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. Okay. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick. Lord's willing, this lesson was edifying with that. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Bashem Kakudash. Shalom to the next lesson.